How we doing? This is Fox back again for sound design tutorials. This is going to be something totally different today. I've started to build up a little portfolio of sound effects and stuff that I can use, hopefully to getting a job in video game sound design or sound design for films. So yeah, I've done a Transformer style sound and the last one with a virus and one with Absinthe. Today I'm going to show you how I made a sound like a sort of spaceship taking off and then blasting off into like hyperspace or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it a Star Wars style ship takeoff. So yeah, I've done it with a virus. It's a 3-note chord, all the same, A, 3 octaves apart from each other. This is a sound bounce down with a little bit of reverb and a little bit of ping pong delay. So I'll show you the sound quick. There we go, not bad. I watched a couple of clips of Star Wars films and based it on the sort of rotary sort of sound of like turbines and stuff whirring, which I've got with in the FX1 section. This rotary speaker is really good for that. It swings a microphone around, which gives you that sense of movement around a central point. And then where it changes and you got like the blast off into the distance, I've set channel pressure, which is after touch, in the matrix section to get the pitch of all three oscillators down and close both filters off. So it goes from quite a high pitch sound where it's took off and it's in the air to everything sort of closing up as it shoots into the distance. And I've automated a bit of ping pong and a bit of a reverb on that just to give it the effect of it going off into the distance. But for I'll mute this audio track now. We'll keep doing it with this MIDI clip that I've played. It's got the automation for the channel pressure in at the end. But yeah, we'll go ahead and initialize this patch. So oscillator 1 was one of the classic waveforms, so you pull it all the way to the left and click on this little triangle. It was wave 59. This is it on its own. Quite a high pitched metallic sound which I thought sounded good. I've pulled this down 1 octave to -24. Oscillator 2, I used a 4-man complex and it was square series. Square series, which is this one. I pulled the wavetable of this just so the white line's in line with the bottom of key follow, about 112, 113. So this is the 2. I pulled this one down 1 octave just to help it sound a little bit deeper. The 4-man shift on this I pulled down to about in between 8 and 9 o'clock. The 4-man spread just up slightly from its original position, about 8 o'clock. I sync the two oscillators just to help it bind the sound together. I didn't use any FM for this. The balance between 1 and 2 I pushed up towards about 2/3 of the way, so it was leaning towards oscillator 2. Oscillator 3 is another classic wave. It's wave 26. And I pulled this one down 1 octave as well, -12. 2, sorry. -24. Volume for this was about 1/3 of the way. Kept the detune where it was as standard. Sub oscillator just above the C. Set the unison to 4, wanted it to sound nice and wide. Detune this to about 40. Pan spread about 15%. and LFO phase offset to about 11 o'clock minus 14. We'll turn the noise on just a tiny bit and set the colour to about 1 o'clock, and then we'll pull it back to dead zero. We're going to modulate this noise to come in with an envelope later on. Ring modulation I use as well, just to help grit the sound up just above the R. Still quite static at the minute. All of the movement comes with modulating the filter and some effects later on. So we're going to go to the filter section now. Filter 1 I kept on a low pass, kept the cut all the way out to maximum, plus 127. Resonance I had at about a third of the way around, about 29. Digital saturation I used for this. This is a brilliant one if you want anything to sound grittier and more metallic. With a ship taking off, that's what I wanted it to sound like, so the parts of the ship in effect. So change it to digital. Saturation I pushed up so it's between the A and the T. I changed it to a split. This is important. This means that it tells you here oscillator and sub-oscillator 1 go into filter 1, which is a 2-pole, then into the saturation. Then you've got oscillator 2 and the noise going cleanly out of filter 2. Now I modulated these two filters different with an envelope to give the sound a bit of difference. Filter 2 was a low pass as well. The resonance was the same. You need to uncheck the filter link because we're going to have an envelope modulate this one. We don't want the envelope to modulate filter 1. I'll push this up ever so tiny, plus 2. Change the envelope amount to negative, so it's going to close the filter up over the attack time that we're going to specify. And I'll push the envelope amount all the way around to just below the T, about 58%. And the filter envelope, it had quite a long attack, so it was gradually modulating the effects that we're going to use later on. Sort of in between the R and the slash. The decay level around to about 1 or 2 o'clock. Sustain level at maximum. Slope dead center, so there is no slope, and the release dead center as well, sort of halfway, about 64. You can hear that envelope on filter 2 slowly closing up, decreasing the noise oscillator. The amp envelope I did pretty much the same as this really, so that the volume increased slightly over time. Attack in between the A and the M. Decay about 11 o'clock. Sustain at full. Slope dead center again. Release slightly less than the filter envelope, about 45, 46. So that's it for the filter section. So we do use this filter. The envelope that we use for all the modulation later on is the filter envelope. So I often do that one on a complex patch, so that you haven't got to worry about other envelopes, and that all the movement is constant. If you just use one envelope, it all tends to like build up at the same time. So yeah, we'll go to FX1 now. I don't use any delay or reverb in the sound when I made it in the virus. I just modulated a tiny little bit afterwards. I bounced it down. So it's just FX1 we need to go through. In the character, I use a speaker cabinet. This is brilliant for these sort of sounds. It gives everything sort of a raspy sort of edge, but with the filters toning it, it just made everything sound a bit more metally. And the tune I had at about 12. Another layer of distortion now with Saffron Overdrive. This is described in the manual as the grungy one, which makes you think it's quite severe, but I like it. It's got some real nice subtle qualities to it as well. I think they named it wrong really. The mix I have just past 51, about 51 and a half, and the drive to about 40%. Phaser, I had the mix round to about 88, frequency about 85. I had it on a 6-stage or 6-pole filter, so there was a lot of movement going on. The feedback just above a quarter, about -40. The spread dead centre. LFO rate at 15, and the depth about 112. The phaser really did help everything sound like there was a bit of air and sort of stuff moving through the engine, which is what I wanted it to sound like. A slow rate, that's quite a slow rate, that is, whatever it's on, 15. It's only probably going to do 1 or 2 cycles over the whole length of this MIDI clip, which is 9-10 bars. Filter bank, use a ring modulation, turned it on, set the frequency to +1. Very important, that is. Any more than that, it's going to drastically change the sound. If you're going to try and recreate this sound exactly, that's what you want to be aiming for, +1. And the stereo phase, dead center, 0 degrees. The frequency on 0, actually, sorry, I got that wrong. Make sure it's dead center on 0. Push it up or -1, you're going to get that stuttering effect, like we did in the Transformers one earlier on, but we didn't want that. I'm going to boost the lows, +4 dB, the mids about the same, +4 or 5, pull the highs back, and the frequency of the highs back to the same amount, about 11 o'clock. Right, the chorus that we introduced is what makes this sound. It's a rotary speaker. It's brilliant. You've got 2 modes. You've got slow or fast mode. We wanted to keep it on slow. Excuse me. The low angle, which is the angle for the low speaker, if that makes any sense, low/high. You want it aiming towards the lows, about 15%. And the angle, about the same, about -20. The distance set to about 6 centimeters. I wish they had a way that you could do the speed on this, like with clock divisions, like the delay and things like that. And I'm going to be messaging them to see if that's possible, because it is a really neat effect. But you've either got slow or fast. It'd be nice to have it rhythmical and be able to set it to the BPM that you chose. Let's say I had the mix round about 93. This is drastically going to change the sound now. You're going to hear our speaker in effect sort of swing around your head. I had my BPM for this session is on 175, so if you are trying to make this sound for yourself for some reason, just so you can get to grips with the virus more, that's the BPM I had it on. If all the movement in that sounds a little bit slower, make sure you got it on 175. So for the effects, that is it. I said all it is now is modulation within the matrix section. This is what is going to change the sound and help us to move things about. So source 1, the main tool for this is a filter envelope, which we set up earlier, which has got this quite long attack, so it's gradually going to increase or decrease the amount of the effects what we set in these boxes. And what I did was oscillator 1 pitch, oscillator 2 pitch, and oscillator 3 pitch. So the pitch of all 3 oscillators. Oscillator 1 and 2 pitch are pretty much identical. I had them on about +6 or +7. And oscillator 3 pitch I had slightly higher. It's about +16. That gives it that rising effect, which gives you the sense of that it's taking off and moving further away from you. I also used the filter envelope to control the noise volume. Filter envelope, noise volume, and we set this to full. So it's going to start off with no noise, and then the filter envelope is going to increase the noise, which gives you that sort of, because we've set the noise colour to slightly off centre. It's going to be quite a brightish noise, but the ring modulation makes it sound a bit deeper, so it's going to sound like the roar of an engine. I thought it was a really nice effect to increase that slowly over the time. So yeah, that's it for the filter envelope modulation. Okay, the other modulation that I used to create that effect later on in this bit that downwards in pitch and downwards in volume and everything is done by the channel pressure, which is aftertouch. I played it on the keyboard, and when it got to a point where I wanted it to sound like it was shooting off, I just pressed down hard on the keys, and then it tailed all the effects off that we're going to modulate now. And the effects that I did were, we'll do it over here in slot 4, channel pressure, which is aftertouch. I did oscillator 1 pitch, oscillator 2 pitch, and oscillator 3 pitch. And I did all of these down to negative. So it was going to decrease the pitch of these over the aftertouch, which was pretty quick, which gives us that boom, that downwards, almost like a kick sound, which then pushed it off into the distance. Also, I used channel pressure for the cut off of both filters. Filter 1 cut off, filter 2 cut off, and the chorus mix, just to decrease the chorus as it went off into the distance. And I pulled all the way these all the way back and then pushed them up slightly to about -55. So it didn't go all the way down to 0, so the filter was totally closed, you wouldn't have heard nothing. Just to keep like the real bassy elements of as it's blasting off into the distance. So yeah, that's it done. Sorry, I've just modulated them on the wrong one. -55, 54. Anywhere around there, as long as you've got a bit showing so it didn't close the filters totally. So yeah, anyway, that was the sound done with all the channel pressure and everything in. So I bounced it down to audio. We got this. I'll turn off the reverb and the delay. All I did with the reverb and the delay is just set them to how I wanted them. I had the dry wet on 29 for the ping pong on a third, so it was offbeat, quite wide. Decay for the reverb was 2 seconds, dry wet about the same, 23%. And then I just modulated the dry wet so it came up rapidly, and then we was only hearing the reverb and the delay for where it shoots off in the distance. So that was the dry wet for the reverb, delay. That's the dry wet. So yeah, the sole purpose of that last bit with the channel pressure and the decrease in pitch and that was just to give the effect that once it took off it was vanishing into the distance. Or once the engines had warmed up at least it was vanishing into the distance. I tried to find a snippet of a Star Wars film to put in here to go with it, but I couldn't be arsed with trying to get away with showing it and having people say that I'm showing it. You struggle with putting film clips on and that. Sometimes people try and ban your video because you're showing bits and stuff. But yeah, that's it. As I say, totally different, nothing to do with dance music in any shape or form, but sound design covers everything. People are doing this sort of stuff every day, day in, day out, making sound effects for films and video games and stuff. So yeah, that's how I would go about doing a Star Wars Starship takeoff. But yeah, as always, if you've enjoyed this, make sure to subscribe up here to my channel. Any questions or anything about any of the patches I've made, please leave them in the bottom and I'll try and get back to you. Okay, cheers.